if you're afraid you're going to lose your balance when you reach forward or bend over to pick something up, or when you go to sit in a chair, you plop, you're going to want to watch this. Okay, so the last time I talked about reducing your risk of falling, I talked about the front of the body, or the anterior chain, which is from, here down to the floor, to your toes, right? Not that your face isn't part of it, but it's really more the neck down that's loading. Your face muscles aren't loading when you do this, right? And when I say loading, I mean working to help you with the movement or control the movement or make sure you don't lose your balance, you're stable, and you're accomplishing the task that you have in mind. Well, we talked about if you go to reach up, you bend backward and you lose your balance, you're at severe risk of falling at that point, or you want to prevent that from happening. I taught 3 exercises that would help with that. Of course, there's always more that you can learn, but go check that video out. Today, I want to talk about what happens when you reach forward. How far can you reach, right? So just do a little test. Go ahead and put a yardstick on the wall or something on the floor, and how far, and just have your feet be side by side and reach forward, and I can go pretty good. Now I kind of feel the pressure into my toes, but you can see I've got a pretty good reach here. That's with my left hand. Now let me see if there's a difference. If I go with my right, no, they're about the same. My right might be 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch longer. So, but notice what your reach is. Now, obviously, if I step forward, I'm going to have a lot more reach because I just stepped forward, right? So, my lower body is forward. But also, it depends on where are you reaching? I mean, I'm reaching right now. I'm pretty much at shoulder height or chest height. What happens if I want to reach lower? What happens if I go down here and now I'm pretty much at waist height or even knee height? How far forward can you reach if you're at knee height, right? How about ankle height? How far can you reach? Now, I feel very stable here. I don't feel like I'm going to fall over. I don't feel like I'm going to lose my balance. But if I keep trying to go forward, I will, because that was my end range, so to speak, right? So what is yours? And then, how do you sit? When you go to sit in a chair, do you sit with control? Can you go all the way down? I mean, I can hover my bottom above this chair for a while, right? And then very slowly control sitting in the chair. Can you do that? If you get to about here and then you plop, it's not good. The back of your body, the posterior chain, the whole from the head down to the heels, there's a problem and you want to fix it, okay? So I'm going to show you a few things because as we talked about in the one where if you go to reach up or bend backward, you fall over. If you go to reach forward or bend over, you fall over. That's not a good thing. If you want to prevent that from happening, right, you want to make sure you're training your body accordingly. Now, a lot of the times, and this is where I've got to mention, there's nothing wrong with these things per se, but you really want to train in what we call specificity of training. If you don't want to fall over when you bend over to pick something up, then you've got to be training in an upright position, loading the back of the body in a way that it can handle that and not let you fall. If you lay on your back, your knees are bent, your feet are on the floor, and you're lifting your bottom, that's called a bridge, right? Yes, it will strengthen those back muscles, but it's strengthening them in a way where you're laying down. You're not standing up. So does it transfer over from standing and improve because you've got all these little cells called proprioceptors, and those little cells are telling your brain where you are in space. I did a video on that. Does your brain know where you are? And those proprioceptors are working really different when you're laying down on your back or when you're standing up and reaching forward. there's no challenge to your balance when you're laying on your back. Just saying. I'm guessing you'll agree with me, right? So let's do this. I'm going to show you some movements that hopefully will help you to train that back side of the body so that it loads properly, it controls the movement, and it keeps you safe. And hopefully will radically decline your risk of falling as you age. So here we go. The first one would be, and depending on where your starting point is, okay, I want to give a couple of different starting points here because it's a whole different audience watching this video, and I want to make sure I'm helping as many people as I can. So if you are already seeing some deficits in this, and you feel like you're at risk if you go to lean forward and, you got to hold on to something because so what I want you to do is I want you to hold on to something when you do this. So let's say you're at the kitchen sink. That's usually the best place to do it. So just kind of pretend this is the kitchen sink. I know it's a little bit lower. It would probably be a little bit higher, but we'll pretend. And what I want you to do is load the back side of the body in a way that's effective and trains it properly. So you're going to put your right foot forward and you're going to hold on with your right hand. So now you're going to reach with your left hand. And when you reach with your left hand, I want you to rotate. I want you to turn to the right and you're going to reach as far as you can without putting weight on that hand. So that hand is there to keep you safe so you won't fall, but I don't want you bearing weight. I want your body really counting on this, right? I mean, even if you just put one finger, just so that your brain knows you're safe and it will allow you to reach forward. Because if your brain thinks you're at risk, if you don't have a hand there and you do have deficits, your brain's not going to let you go forward much. It's going to cheat. It's going to do all kinds of funky things to keep you safe. So, but if you have something here, the brain says, okay, we're safe. We've got a point of contact. We can do what you're asking us to do. We're not worried about falling, okay? So make sure you've got a contact here. Your right leg is forward, that knee is bent, and as I come forward and I rotate to the right, what that's doing is that's really loading that area that you want to load so that it works when you go to bend over and reach forward, and even when you go to sit in a chair, it's going to help, okay? So point of contact, rotate, reach forward, and reach as far as you can, and then make sure you're coming back up in between the repetitions and being nice and straight. You can keep the knee bent, but make sure your trunk comes all the way up so the back of the body's completely unloaded. So it's a full repetition, right? I'm loading and I'm unloading, okay? And of course you would do it to the opposite side. Now, even if you're not already seeing deficits, this can be a great exercise. I'll show you how if you don't have deficits, you can make this a really good exercise. So if you don't have deficits, you're not going to need to hold on. So I'm just showing the other side so you can see a little bit better. If you do have the deficits, you're going to put that finger or that hand, whatever you need, you're going to rotate left and you're going to reach as far as you can and you're going to come back up in between those repetitions. Really load, come back up, okay? Now, if you don't have deficits, but you want to really train these muscles specifically for this, we can get a little more bang for our buck out of this movement by not holding on. I can still reach forward and rotate and really load the back of that left hip. And you can even make it a little bit more challenging by picking up that foot, right? And then coming all the way up. Reach forward, pick up the foot, come all the way back. So you're going to feel this part of the body, it's the posterior lateral or backside hip here, load. That's what you want, okay? So that's one move. Now, another thing that you can do is you can do kind of a step back and bend down to load that whole side of the body. And again, depending on your potential deficits here, you would hold on to make sure you're safe. Get it in an angle here, make sure you can see. So say I want to step back with my right foot. I'm holding on, so I'm safe. And of course, if you don't need to hold on, that's a progression. But I'm going to step back and I'm going to bow down and then I'm going to come back up. So I'm stepping back. My hand can reach even behind my foot or in front of my foot, But you can see I'm really bent down, but I'm holding on here. So depending on your deficits, this might be too low for you. I'll show you different modifications. So even if you can just come here and then come back, make sure you come up completely straight in between, right? So if I want to come here, trying to reach backward will help. It will really help to load the back of the body better. So depending on how low you can go, I step back and I reach back. Come back to start completely with the foot and all. Step back and reach back. Okay? So that's loading the right side of that body. Okay? Now obviously you're going to do it on the other side. Now if you don't need to hold on, you're going to step back and you're going to reach and you're going to go down as low as you can go. This is going to really load, like I said, the back of that body and really make it work properly for you. And then of course we would do the other side. So if I'm holding on with the right hand, I'm going to step back with the left, and I can reach down here, I can reach behind my foot. You know, if you reach here, it's a little bit different. If we reach back, we load the back of the body a little bit more, and we're coming down. Now if you reach forward, now we're starting to get a little extension in the neck and the upper trunk, and that's a different story in how you're loading your body. Sometimes that can really confuse the body because you're asking it to go back in one part and forward in the other part. And your brain may struggle with that proprioceptively depending on how you've trained your body or how sedentary you've been, how much, weakness you've gained or not gained. Even how you train in the gym, you might be training in a way that the body doesn't maybe like doing the opposite motions, but that's a whole nother topic. So that's another way, the stepping back. Now, if you want to really work those sitting muscles, okay, there's a way that we can do that. So let me show you. So if you're plopping, okay, and I've got other videos for this where you got your feet side by side, toes are forward, knees are against the chair, and you're trying to get your bottom as low to the chair as you can go without the knees coming forward. Now, a lot of people, you can see even my toes are coming up here, right? Because I've got all the weight in the back of my body. If you're worried about losing your balance or your brain thinks it has to protect you, you're going to want to hold on. So kind of pretend you're holding on to the kitchen sink. Well, pretend, not pretend. Hold on to the kitchen sink, right? And you can keep those knees back. If those knees come forward, now you're going to work more the quads, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we're trying to get the power source so you don't plop in the chair. Okay, we're trying to get max. So if we get more quad and less max, we want to focus where we want to focus right now. Okay, and this isn't about isolating a muscle. This is about focusing on how you're performing the movement, and the whole body's involved. So that said, we can up the game on that. Okay, and you can do the step backs again, but now you're going to do a step back. It's kind of like a one-legged squat. So if I'm here, kind of pretend, you're out somewhere and you're going to step back to sit down, right? It's very simple, but you want to squeeze as much out of each repetition as you can. So again, if you've got some deficits, but you don't have any pain, no knee pain, that kind of thing, you don't want pain repetitively. If your body is complaining and telling you something hurts and you keep doing it, you're only going to train in dysfunction because your brain is telling you shouldn't be doing it. Okay, and it's trying to figure out a way to make the pain stop. So it's going to use the wrong muscles, the wrong pathways, and you're training in dysfunction. So you want the repetitions to be without pain, and you want them to be stable. So if you have to hold on, that's okay. That's not cheating. Sometimes holding on keeps your brain from cheating. I hope that's clear. Okay, so I'm going to step back, and I'm going to pretend I'm going to sit. And you can see I'm getting my bottom really low. I can feel that. It's working. And I did quite a workout the other day, so my quads are still kind of feeling that a little bit. Not pain, but they're saying I need a little more rest. So I'm stepping back and I'm going down and I'm trying to do a one-legged squat into the chair, right? And then of course I would do the other side. Now and hold on, whatever you need. Now you can modify this. If you've got a knee or a hip or some part of the body that's kind of unhappy about it, if you step back wide, sometimes that'll make a difference. If you step back turning your toes out, sometimes that'll make a difference. Or toes in, or if you step back narrow, that really makes it harder on the back muscles. So if you really want to up your game, you can do this where you're really challenging your stability and you're really challenging your strength, but you still want to be successful, right? So if I step back to make it harder and it's almost like I'm on a tightrope and I go to squat, that really asks my posterior chain or my back side of my body to work harder. If I go wide, it makes it easier, okay? So, and if I turn out, that can make it, you're gonna feel a difference. You don't always have to have your feet perfectly side by side, hip width apart. You might need to change that foot position in order to make another body part okay with you doing the movements. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And I'm really hoping that you enjoy these videos. If you do, please hit the like button. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe so that you get a notice whenever a new video comes out. And I'm going to continue on this, reducing your risk of falls. There's other parts of the body that we want to pay attention to. It's not just about falling backward or falling forward. There's another area where people tend to fall when they go to perform that motion, and you're going to see that in part 3. I'll see you soon.